I hate the gender war. It is the worst part of modernity. Even more annoying than NFTs and A.I Ghibli art, and that's saying something. The gender war is an insanely ugly phenomenon. Ugly, 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 and guilt is absolutely on all sides. While a gender war industrial complex manipulates our rage and fear to drive engagement and provoke soaring corporate profits. It's basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe of bad faith arguments, endless sequels without character development. Now, watch this video to get the full picture of how the genders really interact, all the positive, negative, and neutral in all directions. So, with no further ado, let's get into it. The main sins of our time are sins of omission. Data science is like this when applied to activism. It is possible to selectively pick which data you will pay attention to in order to create a simple, unidirectional narrative out of data taken from its context of a reality which is far more complicated. That said, I'm going to work from this graphic. Now, we're going to start with the negatives. In other words, the bad things that each gender does when we take aggregate statistics. So, the feminists focus entirely on this quadrant, what men do in aggregate to women. Sexual violence, domination of the workplace. Lots of men are not very good at listening to women. They have low standards and low expectations regarding women's intelligence, etc. Men's rights activists and people like Andrew Tate focus on this quadrant, which is all the bad things that women do towards men. Cancellation for something that's not a crime, belittlement, court rulings which favor women, especially regarding divorce, etc. Along with education, which has been adapted over recent decades to favor the learning and testing styles that women prefer. Now, some people also discuss this quadrant, what men do to other men. Almost all violent crimes have a male victim and a male perpetrator. Men compete very aggressively with one another in all kinds of realms of endeavor, professional and otherwise. Men they're constantly negotiating dominance. Even in the queue at Starbucks, you can feel the silent testosterone humming. Well, men also have a lot of physical fights. I think this is a part of why fitness is so important to the right wing, because there is some truth to the idea that there is always an underlying subconscious threat of violence in every single male-on-male social interaction. And finally, this one, which to be honest is a huge taboo in our culture. The negative things that women do to other women. The phrase that sums this up is gossiping, shaming, and rallying, or G.S.R, the very brutal way that women compete without using bodily violence. Every woman who has been in a particularly bitchy friend group of female friends knows about the savage status games that some women play against one another. A group like this would be the equivalent to a group of male friends who get into bar fights just all the time. Women don't do that. It just isn't how their logic works. So women engage in reputation destruction and mate suppression. For example, if a female hairdresser thinks that the lady sitting in her chair is more beautiful than she is, she will cut her hair badly in comparison. Remember, nothing I've just said is always true in every case. These are statistical patterns, and female-style violence is not physical, it is social. Women give each other the worst advice, for example, and honestly, a lot of the time, I don't think that they really realize it. So we can see that there is an intense simplification at the heart of every gender-based ideology, including Andrew Tate's male victimhood ideology. And the versions of feminism, there are many, many versions. The versions which say that women are always inherently victims. Okay. We've stared into the abyss long enough. Let's remember what's worth fighting for. So let's balance this out a bit with the key positives. Firstly, men, in respect to other men, are very good at forgiving one another. They'll have a fight, shake hands, and take a beer together, have a laugh afterwards. Boundaries having been reset. I hope men will start to learn to forgive women too. I'm sure some of you have already realized this, but forgiveness is a huge part of the solution to the gender war. Men are also very good at collaborating, delegating, and existing within hierarchies like those which govern companies. And this is an evolutionary adaptation from the times of hunting and gathering. Male friendships are long arcs across the lifetime. Some of my best friends I only speak to a few times a year, and we hang out and immediately pick up where we left off. Men call each other the worst names imaginable sometimes, and then say, "Oh, I love you really, man." This is emotional communication, male edition. As for men's positive actions towards women, I'm going to use something of a buzzword here, which is chivalry, to describe the general dynamic of men automatically doing things to help women. And I know some women do not like this. They think, well, I can open my own door. Thank you very much, male oppressor. But there is a fascinating book about a woman who lived as a man for a year and a half, to see how society treated her differently. And she was shocked by the level of difference, the extent of the results. Although for most women, this is just the water they swim in, and they do not see how every day, all around them, men go out of their way to make their lives easier. You can call it benevolent sexism if you want. I call it making sure, as best I can, that no one gets kidnapped on my watch. Men will also protect women most of the time. At least the good men will do that. Although I suppose this has become less true recently because so many men are just terrified of legal consequences of getting into any violent situation, even for the benefit of another. However, generally this is true. I mean, when we had parties at my house at university, I always insisted on walking all of the women home afterwards. I had no intention of sleeping with them or anything, but I could not rest easy without it, you know? Men will sacrifice everything else for a woman they really love. And sometimes this can have regrettable outcomes where if a man is betrayed and heartbroken enough times, it can really damage his self-worth and self-esteem. But moreover, society at large is the organizational structure in which men sacrifice to protect women. This is a giant part of what society is. Anyway, so women at the same time, they give so much meaning to a man's life. Being in love with someone is like an endless fountain of motivation. And that love and passion can be channeled by a smart man into whatever else he has in his life, you know, work, education, making YouTube videos, or whatever. Women who love men are also extremely kind and supportive. If they know and trust that you are on their side, they will be there for you. A good woman can turn a caveman into an architect, or at least into a guy who wipes the counter after cooking eggs. By the way, it is your responsibility as the man to maintain the environment where she feels like that. Not to freeze it in a moment of time, but to mutate and change and develop alongside her. A final thing I'll mention, and remember, these lists are not exhaustive, they're archetypal, and that is that women are a kind of civilizing fire, tempering male aggression. Whether that's Spartan mothers forging warriors, or modern wives channeling husbands' ambition into legacy projects. Statistically visible in, for example, lower male suicide rates inside stable relationships, and the reversal, the collapse of male social bonds in female-scarce environments like mining towns where there are no women around and all this violence erupts. Anyway, so women have their interpersonal disputes and so on, but they are very good at having solidarity amongst themselves, like the Harvey Weinstein Me Too movement being a very good example of this. It is true, so many women have been the victims of sexual misconduct, and their ability to show solidarity has traditionally been their mechanism for advocacy since time immemorial. Me Too is nothing new. Women are also somewhat better on average than men at understanding their own emotions, I think. I do think there is truth to the idea that men do not have the same self-awareness with regards to their emotions due to their Apollonian logic, I suppose. And yes, there is value to stoicism, but not to burying trauma. Women on average are far better at having these communications with one another. And finally, women do not just birth babies, but also social realities, networks, norms, safety nets, chthonic female energy, earth mother, mysterious creativity, a kind of midwifery for civilization. From hunter-gatherer childcare cooperation to modern group chats that coordinate crisis support, female solidarity scales empathy in ways male hierarchies rarely do. Visible in, for example, lower elderly isolation rates among women, higher charitable donation in female-led groups, and so forth and so on. Goddamn, I hate the gender war. It is the most ugly part of modernity. The gender war industrial complex thrives on selective omissions. Feminists might fixate on male harms towards women, MRAs or men's rights activists on female biases against men, all while ignoring the brutal intergender and intragender realities like male violence and female status games, all to craft tidy, simplistic, simplified victim narratives that blind us to the fuller matrix of collaboration and conflict. And yet, big tech and consumer giants adore this atomization, turning us into isolated shoppers chasing endless distractions rather than a unified construction of a society that works long term. Social media algorithms, ever the profiteers, amplify rage and fear, the primal clicks that boost engagement and add revenue, fueling echo chambers where forgiveness, chivalry, and solidarity wither on the vine. In truth, men and women are wired for partnership, as millennia of history attests, not to mention evolution itself, from hunter-gatherer cooperation to the unvarnished wisdom of Blanche Ebert's 1913 book, Do's and Don'ts for Husbands and Wives, which dispensed practical counsel on mutual respect and affectionate teamwork, revealing not oppression, but the quiet force of love as the true engine of civilization. I hate the gender war. It is the most ugly part of modernity. So tell me, which quadrant have you survived? Drop your war story. Men, when did a woman last civilize your fire? Women, when did a man last protect you without asking? VR waifus, AI husbands, will technology virtualize the positives or just amplify the negatives? I mean, I think if your soulmate has update patches, something's gone wrong civilizationally. Comment your quadrant and then go outside and touch some grass. And if you can't find grass, at least log off Twitter and breathe some air. Who's with me? The real war is flesh versus simulation. The gender war is ugly. Partnership is beautiful. Do not give up on love. It is the only thing that's ever built anything worth keeping.